BJP is the largest source of content for us as young people now. You came on television, we shut down our screens. You came on newspapers, we stopped reading newspapers. Now you're here on Instagram. What do you want from us? Leave something for us.
Friends, thank you, friends.
I am honored that I come from the legacy even of those people whose names probably mainstream media does not know.
From Jantar Mantar's hunger strike, where she fasted for 23 long days, to the streets of Chennai, ISA President Neha Bora joins the Federal as a Gen Z Rising tour rolls out into Tamil Nadu. Welcome to the show, Neha. When talking about hunger strike, people generally talk about the weight loss because that becomes apparent. But what goes into the head is not spoken about. What actually went into your head during those 23 days?
Actually, it felt like we were less human because our bodily needs or the changes that were taking place in our body and what our brain was telling us and how our brain was responding to that, they had become so loud to us, and especially towards the end of the hunger strike, that we became reduced to our body's needs, the headache, the emptiness and a black hole and acid in the stomach, like that. So I think that was one, yeah.
So, was there a point where you actually wanted to give up because it was so overwhelming? But what is the something that kept pushing you to just keep at it?
I think you do feel that it's too difficult sometimes, but it's a matter of how you articulate it. So while some people might articulate that, oh, let's give up, how we articulated it was, oh man, now this guy has made us sit hungry for so long. If this guy doesn't go, then we are going to go. So we turned it into humor and all of that.
So now after urban Naxals, we now have Dimagi Naxals. And what do you actually have to say about all these terms, the othering terms?
Well, I think, so when videos came out of Jantar Mantar where people were giving this slogan, 56 inch ka chota bandar, Bal Narendra, Bal Narendra, I think Narendra Modi took it to heart. And he's like, oh, now I must come up with something. And he came up with Dimagi Naxal. And he has labeled every section of this country something or the other. And we are united in the fact that the Prime Minister has labeled us something. And the government is alone now. The government is in one corner. And the rest of the people who have been labeled anti-national, Dimagi Naxal, urban Naxal, Pakistani are in one corner. And this government has cemented this unity. So we would like to thank the government for this unity.
And to follow that up, what do you have to say about the word Naxal itself being associated with such terms, such othering terms?
No, I think the government uses such, words to scare people, to tell people that we will make an example out of you. Or, making these words synonymous to something that scares people. So that people lose their desire to rationally engage with such words, its history, the history of this movement. I think that's what the government does when it says urban Naxal or Dimagi Naxal, or when it says Umar Khalid. What the government and its ecosystem wants to do is that it wants to create so much noise around this word that you stop engaging with it rationally, that you stop thinking about it as just another word that has a history, that has a context, and you can understand what it is. You can try to figure out what it means. So, and that is the government's agenda. How do you make so many people in such a large country like India, such a populous country like India, vote for absolute, irrational, unscientific, and cruel leaders like that in the BJP? How do you ensure that this happens? You cut them off of their ability to think and behave like rational beings. And to do that, what do? You create such words, which create noise in people's head. You say Umar Khalid and people are like, oh, JNU, oh, anti-national, oh, red flags, alert, skull and bone. So this is what the government tries to do. And I think what I would urge, because we talk about the education system, we talk about young people and its future, is that it's for us as young people who engage and look at the world and try to find out new meanings, new definitions for it. It's up to us to, lower this common sense of a country, and we are very hard at work at trying to do that.
Back then, but it used to work. The narrative gets set But now Dimaki Naxal got a backlash, and immediately Union Minister Rijiju had to come and say something to control the narrative. So do you think these words are not working anymore?
No, I really think that whatever Karan Rijiju has to respond to, it's actually a disservice. The BJP needs to fix its PR and stop asking people like Rijiju to respond. Because whatever they say is made fun of. Now, whatever the Home Minister and the Prime Minister says is made fun of. The Prime Minister thought that it's going to, be amicable to the young people of this country by coming to reels, and people are now saying that you came on television, we shut down our screens, you came on newspapers, we stopped reading newspapers, now you're here on Instagram, what do you want from us? Leave something for us. So all of this, that fear, that big spectacle has broken, and people are just making fun. The BJP is the largest source of content for us as young people now.
So you want to get NTA replaced, NEP scrapped, but what do you want to replace it with? What is the system that should be put in place after once this is taken out?
I think the NTA has to be rolled back, completely scrapped, and it is the government which has to be responsible for conducting examinations. One. The second thing, NTA does not just conduct examinations, it institutionalizes and upholds this system of one nation, one exam. Why? Why one exam? Why should a NEET be conducted to enroll students into medical colleges throughout the country? If you do not, as a government, if you fail to give all students of the country access to a good CBSE school, then why do you think you have the power to make students from several state boards and CBSE boards compete in the same exams? It puts students from state boards at a great disadvantage. And that is why examinations and centralization of all examinations should also end, and state governments should be given the responsibility of conducting examinations. The institutions like AIMS, which are government institutions, should be given the responsibility of conducting examinations. Public institutions like JNU and HCU, which used to have their own entrance examinations, they used to conduct it themselves. And no such paper leak should happen. They should be given the freedom and autonomy to conduct their own examinations. This is the model we have for NTA. The model for NEP is that NEP as a policy does nothing. At the core of the NEP is dismantling a public education system and erecting in front of it a private education system. Education is no more a right that the government should ensure to all the young people of this country. Education is a business idea now. You make money out of it. So when that is at the core of a education policy, then naturally the country is going to be illiterate. Naturally, there is going to be massive dropout. Naturally, there is going to be an increase in social disparities and a consolidation of social disparities, which means that there is a increase in mortality, female mortality, child mortality, employment is going to take a hit. All of this is what the NEP institutionalizes. So it has to be rolled back, and we have to think of a robust education policy that at its core understands that it is not the responsibility of an individual ki leke dikhao, dare to take education. This cannot be the model of education. All governments, central, state, have to be responsible for providing education to all young people, all students of this country. Yeah.
Do you think the protest that happened in Jantar Mantar and something that's happening everywhere is just have to do about NEET or NEP problems and NTA problem, or is there a bigger issues to that?
No, not at all. Of course not. The education system is only part of a larger system, all of which is crumbling. The protests were also because we have seen such naked violence on the streets of this country. We have seen it become so easy for us to hate one another on the basis of different divisions of caste, gender, religion, that there was an anger against that. There was a hope that this movement will be able to consolidate unity and solidarity and do away with this politics of hate. There was a hope that this movement would highlight the crisis of unemployment that this country faces. So first of all, majority of the young people of this country do not enter higher education. They don't have access to higher education. And even those students who do have access to higher education, they go out of their universities and colleges with degrees in hand, and there is no job. So there was also an expectation that this would be highlighted, that this would come to the fore through this protest. So it was a consolidation of a lot of disappointment with a lot of small institutions pointing at a larger crumbling of the larger institution in this country.
While ISA was started in 1990s, I think, in Allahabad. People have started to notice it only right now, and a lot of credit goes to you. What do you think of being the face of ISA?
So I think because I know ISA's history, I know the history of Comrade Chandu, who was martyred. I mean, he was a student of JNU. He decided not to take a job in an AC office as a professor or like some researcher somewhere. He decided to go back to his place in Siwan in Bihar and work with the young people of Bihar and the students and the people of Bihar, the farmers, the landless laborers of Bihar. He chose that life and he was killed for it. He was shot for it in the middle of a market. And it gives me so much. I mean, I am honored that I come from his legacy. I am honored that I come from the legacy even of those people whose names probably mainstream media does not know, but who are responsible for ensuring that OBC reservation is implemented in higher education. So today, if OBC reservation is correctly being implemented somewhere, the cutoff of OBC reservation, that idea is being implemented correctly, it's nothing but because of the struggle of ISA in and legal battle as well as battle on the ground against something called, Youth for Equality. They were essentially ABVP masquerading as equality and saying that, reservation brings in inequality. So our struggle on the ground against them and our struggle legally to, ensure this thing. I am honored that I come from a legacy of, where on one hand in the 90s there was a rise of anti-reservation and communal politics in the wake of the yatra, the Rath Yatra that was taken out, and wherever that Rath would travel, there would be mass-scale bloodbath, where on one hand this was happening, there was an assertion of a radical student force, which was ISA. So an assertion against that. So I am really honored that I come from that legacy. And if I am able to, make sure that that legacy reaches more people through a hunger strike or through any other means, it's a matter of great privilege for me.
Following that up, I wanted to ask you about how Abhijit Deepke said that after the Jantar Mantar protest worked, he said that don't make me a hero, because that is exactly what the country's the problem is, because we made someone a hero and that's what we are facing. But do you think any kind of movement can happen without a leader, just with the ideology? Is that possible?
No, I think symbols are important. Symbols have always been important in the history of human society. Symbols have consolidated people, given them a sense of belonging and community. And when we try to find leaders in people and, make them larger than life, it is our attempt to do that. But we should, of course, be careful. It is important that, I find it very nice that a lot of student protesters from different states are being hailed as leaders, because that is true. That is truly the form that all protest should take. It is so nice that because we live in the age of social media, that so many young people who are detained or who are at the protests, their photographs are being run, their videos are being run, and they are getting to become the face of the movement, because that is actually true of mass movements, that people in their own capacities contribute to it and make the movement much bigger, much larger. Even those people who might be on the stage but don't know these people, without acknowledgement from such people, without acknowledgement from the mic, people contribute and make movements bigger, more meaningful, sharper, more, undeniable. So I think it was nice what is happening nowadays. That's truly what it should be.
While governments are finally listening to the people because of the protests that happened in Jantar Mantar and also in Jharkhand, but can this be the only form of conversation between people and the government? Can it be like only a protest can be the only form of communications between them? Is there any way other than that? Because it can't be all protests, right?
No, I think a proper democracy would be that people would have a problem and the government would listen. So the breakdown of democracy has started from the side of the government. Proper democracy would be that you would protest and the government would not fire pellet guns at you. So the breakdown of democracy has happened from the side of the government. So if the government breaks down democratic accountability, then it is absolutely the democratic right of people to protest. And because, this is a norm that has been made by the government. So many ways in which people have submitted memorandums, several teachers' organizations, student organizations have written en masse to the government against the NT and against the NEP. We have submitted memorandums to the Ministry of Education, we have submitted memorandums to the NTA headquarters. Nothing the government has listened to. In fact, the fact that we had to do a 23 days long hunger strike means that the government wants to push us to our maximum before, it surrenders. It wants to break us. It wants to try us. It wants to try our limits and see where we will break. It is only where we refuse to break that the government's resolve breaks. And the people have understood this. So if the government wants to listen to people, there will be no protests. You listen to us. But if you don't listen to us, then protests is what has been guaranteed to us. It took us so many years of struggle against 200 years of British slavery. It will take, if it has to take these many years again of struggle against the slavery that the BJP and the RSS is imposing on us, then let the era of protests begin. Let the era of governments being scared of its citizens and accountable to its citizens begin. No problem in that.
Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.